In about 1 month's time, we are going to receive a brand new survivor coming in as a standalone DLC into the Fog. And there are tons of different possibilities on what this character could be, so let's jump on in to the possibilities. Kings and Queens, welcome back to the channel. I hope you're all having a fantastic day and you're doing well. Today officially starts pretty much 25 days of King. I don't really know what I'm going to call it, but I'm going to try to upload and stream pretty much every single day. So starting today, December 1st, we're going to be making videos and streams will start on Sunday. I'll extend it a little bit after Christmas just so we could start the week off on Monday. Nonetheless, I digress. Let's go ahead and talk about today's video. And that's essentially who's going to be coming in as a new survivor into the Fog. In case you didn't know, we are going to be getting a brand new character joining the Fog in the next mid-chapter update. Now that Trekkie has officially joined the Fog, it is time to shift gears and talk about who potentially could join. I've seen a lot of people say that this is a little bit out of the blue. Why would they do this? To me, it's quite obvious. Previously, we've seen characters such as Ghostface coming in as a standalone chapter, and since you have the time and resources, since you're not making a survivor, it makes sense to make another survivor, whether that's licensed or not, to bring into the Fog, just so you're still pretty much delivering on the same amount of content. Now, this doesn't happen every single time we receive a solo DLC where we only get one killer. However, in recent times, this has more or less been the case. Now, vice versa, it hasn't necessarily been the same if we received an extra survivor. It doesn't necessarily mean we're going to be getting an extra killer, but notably, Michaela Reed coming in with the Halloween event just really ties into all of that. So essentially, the devs are still spending the same amount of time and the same amount of resources to now bring in another character, which will be introduced in the mid-chapter patch. So let's boil this down onto a couple of possibilities. First of all, is this character going to be licensed or are they going to be original? We know that Dead by Daylight likes to typically have a healthy mix, so in my honest opinion, I'm leaning towards more of an original character. So let's get that theory out of the way. If this character truly is original, their perks are going to have to be out of this world to make up for people wanting to buy the character. Typically, if you're buying a DLC, you're getting a new survivor and a new killer, so it makes sense that you buy them together. However, if you're selling something that's standalone, unlike a killer that comes with a whole different power and a whole different playstyle with new Moris, etc., the survivor is pretty much just a skin with some perks that eventually will be obtainable. So it really boils down to how good these perks are going to be. With Michaela, they did exactly this. We've seen a character that brought in something that completely shifted the dynamics of Dead by Daylight altogether. And to be fair, throughout this year, Dead by Daylight has really been testing out some new things in their anniversary events or Halloween events that really changes the gameplay quite a lot. And recently, we've seen perks that do exactly the same thing. So chances are that if the survivor is original, the perks are going to be pretty monumental, and it's going to be the big selling point of this character. Obviously, there needs to be relatability to the character as well, and we know Dead by Daylight makes strides for inclusivity, so that definitely is going to go a long way as well. However, overall, just to the average person, you're going to have to appeal with those perks. So I'm expecting something on the level of boon totems that really is going to spice up the gameplay and really change things. And you can go as far as saying, you know, in our previous video, we talked about some big changes that were coming to Hemorrhage and things like that. Maybe the new survivor has to deal with status effects or something along the line, or that could potentially be the new killer, but I feel like that definitely has some play into it some way, somehow. Nonetheless, if the next survivor is going to be original, the big selling point is going to be the perks, so that's what's going to happen. Now, to add a little bit more about this original chapter as well, Dead by Daylight basically put out an advent calendar, and they pretty much focus on the stream of talking about all of this stuff that you're going to be getting enough iridescent shards to unlock an original character by the end of the new year. And we know this chapter is going to be coming out in January, so maybe they're just trying to set you up to get a brand new survivor that they're going to be releasing, and it's going to be original. To me, it makes a lot of sense. So a lot of this indicates that the next chapter is going to be original. But let's talk about some of the other possibilities. What if this character is licensed? I mean, Dead by Daylight has been pumping out licensed content throughout this year. We've had Nicolas Cage, we had Alien, we had Ellen Ripley, we had Chucky, we had Tiffany. Chances are this could be another licensed piece of content that we're going to be receiving, and this could essentially be a full unlicensed year. In our interview with Matthew Cote, I kind of mentioned that the whole year could be potentially licensed, and the way he made it seem was, no, we still will get our original stuff out out there. So again, chances are this is going to still be original, but if it is indeed licensed, there are quite a few possibilities. Let's start with the most obvious one, and that is something from Stranger Things coming into the game. Stranger Things returned to Dead by Daylight, and the reason that we kinda were speculating that this could happen was because Stranger Things returned to Fortnite, who essentially lost their license deal with Netflix around the same time that Dead by Daylight lost their license deal. From there, we've seen that they introduced new content as well as bringing back the old content, and they received 11 as a new playable character in the game. So, if they're following in the same footsteps, Dead by Daylight could 100% bring 11 into the game. Now, we also know there's a ton of other characters that they could potentially bring in as skins, so I think those will more likely just come out as skins. Like, we definitely could see Hopper coming out as a Steve skin along the lines of that, or Joy Spires coming in as a skin for Nancy. I think that makes a lot more sense. However, with 11, I think she definitely would have to be a character in herself. She's just a little bit too monumental to bring in as just a skin. She's a main character. She's not really a side character, so to speak. So it just makes more sense to me that they would bring her in as herself, and then maybe along the lines, we can get all of the other cast as skins for her. With that being said, that also does tie into the argument of some monumental perks. We know that 11 has some crazy power, so they definitely could get really creative with things like that. So to play devil's advocate on if 11 could join the fog this quickly, I do think it's something that will happen eventually, and we will receive new Stranger content, but we know that Dead by Daylight typically has a lot of their things planned way far in advance. If you take a look at the anniversary event, they already knew what was happening now. It wasn't something that was, just speculated that maybe we'll get a new Survivor here. They knew that we're going to be getting a new Survivor. In a recent interview that Matthew Cote did, he essentially said that when they spoke to Netflix, it was really quick for them to just flip the switch and turn the chapter back on, which leads me to believe that if it was that quick for them just to have that conversation and to flip the switch almost instantly, maybe with just a few weeks' notice, chances are that maybe they didn't have enough time in a development cycle to create a new character that would be 11. On top of that, if they were to get this information months prior and they tactically planned it to be released on Stranger Things days, which can be another argument, we've seen that Fortnite pretty much brought in the same exact skin. However, Fortnite and Epic Games, they're a much larger team than Dead by Daylight themselves, so to get a character out that quickly wouldn't necessarily be that hard for them, and according to Matthew Cote, a chapter takes 9 to 12 months, so maybe they just wouldn't have enough time. Now, if all the stars align correctly, they definitely still could work it in. I'm not saying that this is shooting down this theory 100%, but it definitely would be a time crunch. In my mind, for this to work, they would have to know before the anniversary event that Stranger Things was going to be returning, and then have that 3 to 4 months to create everything and then bring it in as a standalone Survivor. I think it could work, but it's really stretching it. In my mind, I honestly feel that more so, they just got the word from Netflix. They're like, hey, you can turn the chapters back on. Let's sign a deal. They got it signed. They got out the door. And that was that. And bringing new content is something they're thinking about for the next year. And I already had this year planned out. And what leads to more possibilities is more celebrities coming into the game. We know that this year, Dead by Daylight introduced Nicolas Cage, which was their first ever in real life celebrity to join the fog as a character playing as themselves. In our interview, Matthew Cote said he would love to get more celebrities joining the fog, and that this really started when he rumored the Tony Hawk stuff, and they've been working on this for quite a long time. So we know that celebrities are definitely on the list for this to happen, and we can kind of narrow this down a little bit as well with more safe celebrities, so to speak, ad-friendly celebrities. I don't really know what you would call it, essentially, but people that, as Matthew Cote said, wouldn't go and do anything too crazy or bad. And Nicolas Cage was one of their safe bets that, whatever happens. This is Nicolas Cage, this is what you're going to be getting. So to bring in another celebrity wouldn't be too far-fetched, and we could kind of narrow it down based on that criteria. I think one of the leading candidates definitely has to be Keanu Reeves because he's already in another game in Cyberpunk, so this would be a nice safe bet, and how cool would that be for Dead by Daylight? There's obviously a ton of other people that they could pick from, but that's one of the ones that comes to my head really, really quickly. I know a lot of people have their hopes up for people that are more brand new into the scene. People have really been talking about Jenna Ortega, things like that, but I don't necessarily think A, Dead by Daylight has the budget for that, or B, they would really get in contact and get something like that to work. It would be a really, really big outlier. I think there's a lot of hype and a lot of speculation for characters like that, but I don't think it's something that would work business-wise. They would just ask for way too much money, or they wouldn't be part of the project unless they have a passion for Dead by Daylight itself. So in my mind, celebrities that are more, not necessarily at the top in their prime, are more the candidates that you kind of want to go for. That's why someone like Keanu Reeves fits. Now, disregarding that, there's a ton of other celebrities that I personally would like to come into the game, and I'm sure you guys would want. Steve Carell would be super cool. It would be great if he had voice lines as well. Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, the biggest celebrity movie actor there is right now, or highest paid, I should say, definitely a great option. Ryan Reynolds, Ryan Gosling, hell, maybe even Dolly Parton. I don't know. There's tons of different awesome celebrities that they could introduce into the game, but again, going back and being more realistic about the criteria, I definitely think that it narrows down the search a little bit more, and some of those characters might be on the list. Keanu Reeves essentially is my front runner if anybody were to come into the game. However, there might be some exclusivity deals with Cyberpunk that doesn't necessarily allow him to come. Now, realistically speaking, there's a lot of other licensed characters that they could bring into the game. One of the most recent theories that I've seen is The Walking Dead joining the Fog. Now, shout out to the V on Twitter because this is where I saw this theory, and essentially they were saying that Dead by Daylight and The Walking Dead could have a big collaboration potentially happening in the future. They basically said that Call of Duty data miners have found out that Rick and Michonne are going to be coming in as operators into Call of Duty. Now, COD has a lot of collaborations. They've worked with people like Nicki Minaj, so they are a bit all over the place, and they definitely have the money to do so, but this is more so up Dead by Daylight scene as it's linked into horror, essentially. Typically I would say, yeah, whatever, they got this operator, so be it. Dead by Daylight probably won't go after a character like that, but knowing that The Walking Dead is doing collaborations out there and they are focused more so around horror, Dead by Daylight's the Hall of Fame of horror, it would be a great addition to add in these characters into the game. They also pointed out that one of these characters was originally supposed to be going into Mortal Kombat as well. That eventually fell through, but again, people that work with Mortal Kombat typically work with Dead by Daylight as well, and if they're giving their licensing rights to a lot of different gaming companies, chances are Dead by Daylight could be in those talks. We know that these characters are already featured in Fortnite as well, so I mean, the door is wide open. Something like this could definitely happen as it is so well suited for them to join the Fog. Again, a big shout out to Veet. This just seems pretty likely. This is something that definitely could happen, and they would have had this planned for a very, very long time as well. We also know that there's some new Walking Dead content that is going to be coming out. It's a little bit more hard to plan these things in advance, but definitely something that they could work with and get some dates going. So again, it adds to that theory. Now again, keep in mind that new series release or movie release definitely don't play a big factor into how Dead by Daylight puts out their content. If anything, it's more so coincidental if something like that happens, unless it's pre-planned in such a far advance. There's been a lot of hype, for example, with the FNAF movie, and everyone thought the next chapter was going to be FNAF. There was a lot of hype with Candyman when the Candyman movie came out, and everyone thought the next chapter was Candyman. Obviously, these things don't typically happen, and the track record has indicated that this doesn't necessarily happen, so that's to poke a few holes in this argument. Nonetheless, with that out the way, I think it really does set up for this chapter coming into the Fog as well, and it definitely is a big possibility. So there you go. Those are essentially my 4 different theories. You guys can rank them on who you feel really is going to come out. In my opinion, I definitely think that the front runner is definitely going to be an original character. I think Dead by Daylight, they're feeling pretty okay with amount of licensed stuff that they put out, and they really want to get creative and make their own type of thing and potentially change the game to a whole different level with another original survivor with some fantastic perks. I think if anyone has to be in second place, it would definitely have to be the Walking Dead stuff, just because they're having so much collaborations right now, and it's so well fitted and suited for Dead by Daylight. And then from that point, I would think it would be a tie essentially between another celebrity, because there's definitely a lot of potential for that, or really crunching a Stranger Things character with the time restraint in together. I think those definitely are the top 4 possibilities, and we'll have to wait and see essentially what's going to happen. If they do end up just getting an original survivor with some lackluster perks, I would be so disappointed. I hope it really lives up to its expectations and changes the game for good, essentially, and really shapes the entirety of the game the same way kind of Michaela did it with the boon perks, but we'll have to wait and see. But that essentially is going to wrap it up for my theory and the first day of 25 Days of King, I guess, or December with King. I'll come up with a better name at some point in time. I have a cool announcement that's going to be happening tomorrow as well. We've partnered up with a new company, so I'll let you guys know more about that tomorrow. But for now, that's going to do it for me. As always, I'm the King. I tip my crown to you guys, and we'll see you in the fog.